All right, so getting started, we're going to talk about interdependence in ecosystems. So what is interdependence? Interdependence is that living and non-living organisms work together to make life happen. Energy flows in from the sun, as you guys can see, into producers, and that energy flows up through the food web. Matter flows as well through the carbon, nitrogen, and water cycles. Without energy and matter flow, life wouldn't exist. So if we don't have energy flowing in so that we can now have energy inside here, we wouldn't be able to get matter flow. It creates a really happy situation for people, organisms. So there needs to be balance in the ecosystem. Ecosystems are communities of living organisms, biotic and abiotic factors. Biotic are living, and abiotic are non-living, non-synthesized by living organisms. So biotic just doesn't have to be things that are alive, but it can be things that are also synthesized by things that were alive, such as fingernails, right? Leaves that fall off. Ecosystems will fluctuate over time, but maintain stability for the most part and can adjust to changes. There is evidence to suggest that biodiversity is important to providing stability. Organisms can have different niches. So the main point of this is biodiversity, which is the number of different living organisms, is very important to keeping balance in an ecosystem, and as a result, you're going to have a little niche. And all the niches are the little areas that organisms live. Here's a little kind of, I like this because it looks like a butterfly, and it makes me think of the butterfly effect, which is that we read about yesterday. What if a butterfly flapping its wings in New Mexico can lead to a hurricane in somewhere else, or a storm in China? It's this idea that we're all connected. And this is right here showing that we are connected, because here we're looking at biodiversity. And biodiversity are going to have a whole bunch of issues to it, right? So you might have biodiversity, different number of organisms, right? And as a result, if you have good status for that, you're going to have a whole bunch of diversity that might be in river and lakes, which is going to be able to tell you how biodiverse you are if you have a whole bunch of organisms. You're going to have biophysical structures. Are you going to have habitats like the beavers creating different areas, dead wood, forests, different structures that organisms, bees can live in? And as you have more diversity, you're going to have more microhabitats. You're going to have different functional traits. So you're going to have different sorts of sizes, different sorts of organisms, and that's important because the more diversity you have, the more likely you are able to survive major events as an area. And then ecological processes, such as nutrient cycling, biogeochemical cycles, decomposition, all these areas right here are super important. If you have good biodiversity, you're going to be better at that. Here you have wild crop and livestock relatives, right? So genetic diversity is going to lead to an important amount of diversity, which means that you're going to be able to resist environmental changes and be better suited because you never know what you need to survive. Species riches, if you have more species, you're going to have just more enjoyable experience, just being able to enjoy this. And then, of course, biotic interactions. These are living parts of your organism interacting, and it's going to lead to being able to control things that we may not want, such as wasps and beetle prey on pest insects that can harm crops. This is much like what we learned about with the wolves. So this is a little video. I am going to see if we can watch it.
Levels of organization in ecology. In ecology, we seek to understand the interactions among organisms and their environment. This includes both biotic and abiotic components. Some of these factors include plants like trees, flowers, and grass, water like oceans, lakes, and rivers, animals like mammals, birds, and fish, and soil like rocks and minerals. All living things depend upon one another, and they depend upon the environment in which they live for their survival. If the population of one organism rises or falls, then this can affect the whole rest of the ecosystem. This means that all organisms in an ecosystem are dependent upon each other. This is called interdependence. There are 5 levels of organization in ecology: organism, population, community, ecology, and biosphere. We start with the organism. The organism is the lowest level of organization, which includes both unicellular and multicellular organisms. An organism is one individual living entity, like a plant or animal or a microscopic organism. All living species in this level exhibit all the characteristics required for the existence of life. The next level of organization is population. A population is a group of individuals of a given species that live in a specific geographic area at a given time. Note that populations include individuals of the same species. Many populations come together to form a community. A community includes all the populations in a specific area at a given time. A community includes populations of organisms of different species. Putting together all of the living and non-living components of the environment in a certain area at a specific time gives us the ecosystem. The highest level of organization in ecology is the biosphere. The biosphere is the global ecological system of all living creatures, their relationships with each other, and the environment. A biosphere is the sum of all of the ecosystems established on planet Earth. It is the living component of the Earth system. Living in balance with the environment helps preserve our world on every level. Thank you for watching.
All right, so moving forward. So as you guys saw, there's different levels of organization is the important part. You go from the very small individual organism all the way up to the biosphere, which we've kind of started talking about. But there's always going to be relationships that happen, and when we're looking at the organism level, there are, of course, relationships that happen, and the three main ones are parasitism, mutualism, and commensalism. Parasitism is when one benefits and the other one is harmed. So here you have, say, like a mosquito. Right? Mosquito is benefiting by getting some things on the other one, may get a disease, may get a little scratchy itch. It's a parasite. Tapeworms are like this as well. Mutualism is where you have two organisms that benefit. Here you have the pollination of a flower, and then, of course, the bee being able to get some nectar out of it. And then commensalism is where one benefits and no real effects on the other. And here we have the sea anemone and the clownfish, right? With the clownfish being able to get protection from the sea anemone because it has developed sort of resistance to the stings that happen, and nothing really happens negatively to the sea anemone that we're aware of. Here is probably commensalism, right? If you look at this, you have this elk which is chilling with these birds. The birds get some protection, a place to hang out. Nothing bad happens to the elk. It might be mutualism, depending if the birds are maybe eating insects that might potentially make the deer or elk sick. It depends on the relationship. The next major concept is carrying capacity, and we'll do that in the next one.